CSEC Biology with yours truly, Miss Shallow. In today's lesson, we will talk about populations. Populations continue with our study of ecology, and in this video, we will define a population, list the factors that determine population size, and discuss the impact of environmental factors on population size. So let's go! A population can be defined as the number of organisms of a particular species living in a particular place at a particular time. So population is species specific, place specific, and time specific. So when talking about a population, you may hear about the population of rabbits living in a particular meadow, let's say in the spring of 1993, or a populations of seabirds along a particular shore in 2005, or even the human population that inhabited planet Earth in 2020. But before we delve into population, a few fun facts. Did you know that some species of ants can produce 250,000 eggs every 2 weeks? And that the male seahorse can produce 2,000 babies at once? So why isn't our planet overrun with ants? Or why isn't the ocean swarming with seahorse? The answer to that question lies with the two factors that determine population size. The first of these factors is the birth rate. The birth rate is the frequency in which new organisms are being born into a population. The birth rate in a population is also due to what is called the fecundity of the organism. Fecundity simply means the amount of babies that the organisms can have. Fecundity can range from as little as 1 to 2 babies per breeding season up to thousands. The next main factor that determines population size would be our death rate. Our death rate is the rate at which organisms leave the population by dying. Death rate is often called the motility rate. So birth rate and death rate are the key two factors that determine a population size. There are two other factors, though not as important, that may play a role in determining the population size. These factors are immigration, where new organisms move into a population, and emigration, where organisms move out of the population. So, birth and immigration add to a population and can cause population increase, whereas death and emigration take away from a population and can cause population decrease. Birth and death, however, are most significant. So, if the birth rate is greater than the death rate, the population would increase. But if the death rate is greater than the birth rate, the population will decrease. Looking at the population size, we would realize that over time, populations increase and decrease. So a population may increase in 1 year and decrease in the next. Even though populations would increase and decrease based on their particular birth rate or death rate, you would notice that on average, populations tend to stay the same over time. When examining a new population in an ecosystem, the population graph can be plotted. The population graph results in an S-shaped curve that shows how the population size fluctuates or changes with time. In the beginning, where the population is now being established, the population size does not change much. But once the organisms have become established, they begin to breathe, the birth rate increases, and the population size also increases. This phase is called the exponential phase of the population growth. But after some time, we notice that the graph begins to flatten out or level. This leveling occurs when the population reaches its carrying capacity, which simply means that the population cannot hold anymore. The population ceases to grow. If we continue further with time, eventually the population size begins to decrease. So what exactly causes a population size to reach its carrying capacity? Well, the factors that cause a population size to reach its carrying capacity are often environmental and are 1. Competition. As more organisms are in the population, individuals begin to compete with each other for several things. It may be competition for food. It may be competition for space. Organisms may compete with each other in their species, but they may also compete with organisms of other species. We have to remember that populations do not exist in isolation, but with other populations making up a community in the ecosystem. The second environmental factor that may limit the population size is disease. We should also note that if a population size is large, it increases the risk of disease spreading, and of course, diseases will increase the death rate, causing the population to begin to decline. Other factors that would limit the population size would also include natural disasters. Natural disasters can be unpredicted, and organisms have no way of protecting themselves against a natural disasters that occurs on the spur. Natural disasters therefore would also increase the death rate of organisms, controlling or limiting the population size. Other environmental factors that limit the population size would include pests as well as invasive species. Pests and invasive species also help to increase the death rate, limiting the population size. In this lesson, we learned that organisms of the same species living in a particular place at a particular time is called a population, and that the population size is determined mainly by the birth rates and the death rates. Even though populations may increase or decrease over time, populations tend to stay the same. Populations reach their carrying capacity, which essentially is the limit to the number of individuals in the population. And this carrying capacity is determined by environmental factors such as competition, diseases, natural disasters, invasive species, and pests. Thank you for listening, and see you next time.